Preek has mentioned that in a recent video, 95% of legendary items will be nerfed. Can you speak to the quality of health that this is meant to bring LoL and the team expectations that it's come with? I'm assuming it's about reducing snowballing and stuff, reducing the value of gold. And so over the years, League has become a more snowbally game in a number of ways, and gold has become more and more valuable. And this is especially relevant in things like pro play, where pro players are able to perfectly CS compared to the average player. And so when you reduce the amount of power in the item system, you reduce the power that a champion will get from the amount of gold they're farming, things like that. That's possibly part of it. I think another desire is to make late game slower. You get to a point in late game where your characters are very powerful, they're very tanky, they do tons and tons of damage, and so by reducing the amount of power available in the item system on full builds, characters will be squishier, but they will also be doing meaningfully less damage. And so late game fights will probably play out longer in that world if the item system is nerfed. Whereas nowadays late game fights can be pretty explosive depending on the situation. If you nerf Snowball, aren't assassins indirectly nerfed too? They can be. It depends on how you do it, right? So as an example, here's a version of a set of item changes that could happen. I'm not saying this is going to happen, by the way. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. If you said all the AD carry items lost DPS related stats, and all the assassin items lost cooldown related stats. At the end of the day, assassins late game are probably going to look, not as versatile, but they're still going to be able to spike early off of the damage that they're getting from their items. But then what they'll be giving up for that spike is things like, say, cooldown. Again, not saying that's going to happen. Just giving an example that there are a lot of ways to squish an item depending on what you want. You can squish an item by just making it weaker across the board. Literally every stat is down. You can squish an item by saying, well, actually, we want to target these specific stats for these specific classes based on how we want classes to be shaped, right? So there's a number of ways you can do that and try things there. Any thoughts on how the solo lane, marksman, and high elo and pro play problem can be solved? I personally tinker that ideas for a solution, but it seems challenging. I think it's very, very challenging. For what it's worth, I think we have mostly solved it in solo queue and high MMR. Yeah, so as an example, if you look at mid lane right now in Grandmaster Plus, if you look at the pick rates, there aren't really any 80 carries at the top anymore. SMOLDER exists, so there are some that are viable, but there aren't really dominating anymore. My general thought on the space is it's really complicated. I'll say that. There's just a lot of things going on that could cause that to happen. But my personal opinion on one of the things that's causing it is I think 80 carries are too hard to kill. And we've done a lot over the last couple of years to nerf burst damage, especially early, nerf the assassination potential of assassins, nerf assassin snowballing. So as an example, one of the ways you could kill an AD carry historically was by a serrated Dirk, and that was a massive power spike in terms of lethality. But we've nerfed serrated Dirk, and other things like that, so it's hard to power spike against these characters. That's not the only thing, though. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But mainly, one of the things that historically has kept AD carry team comps down is if you buy, if there's multiple AD carries on a team, the enemy team can, build some tanks or build some assassination and take care of them. That said, I don't know if that's actually even the thing going on right now in mid lane. It just looks like the mid lane is just a very safe lane nowadays. It's hard to create action there, and when that's happening, AD carries, or a lot of them can be push and farm pretty safely. I think next packs, I believe they're thinking about things like some of the sustain runes, which are probably contributing as well. AP junglers being strong is another contribution, right? There's a number of things that go on there. And so I'll say, I have personal takes of hey, are assassins strong enough? Hey, is burst damage strong enough? Even not on not assassins, right? Hey, are AD carries too tanky? But there's also AP junglers, and there's also maybe mages just aren't, as functional, right? Maybe the mid lane mages are supposed to be stronger. Maybe it's the changes to mid lane in terms of safety, right? It's a lot harder to gank mid lane nowadays because the brushes are moved out. And that change was originally made partially to help some of the more fragile classes of mid, like mages, function there, but maybe AD carries finally saw that and they're you know what, I'm going to move in, right? Maybe damage diversity of the team from a range perspective isn't as needed as it could be. Maybe if you have 280 carries on a team, a tank should be able to buy 1 armor item and instantly win the game. That's probably bad too, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of just complexities that come with it. And I'll say I would say I haven't really had my mind on it enough recently to give like conclusive answers there. But yeah, my number one thing that I feel playing the game at the very least is it does feel very hard to kill people, which is probably doubly true in pro play because pros tend to play a lot safer. But that's very anecdotal. EKKO in pro play. We could probably get EKKO back in pro play, but we're probably not willing to do it because the thing we would have to do to make him good in pro we wouldn't like. Very specifically, if EKKO had very powerful, very uninteractive wave clear, he could probably become a pro pick again. So if we buffed his Q so that he could just throw it at the wave and like trivially wave clear and go roam or something, I think that could possibly get him back in pro. But I don't think we want that. That might be just kind of messed up to play against and kind of like, you know, uninteractive and kind of boring. The other thing we could do is we could give him like a stronger early game in the jungle in some way, because one of the things that keeps EKKO out of the pro play in the jungle is he's like very snowball reliant and not actually that strong early. And so if we buffed up his like clear in the jungle or something, but that also seems sus to me because his clear in the jungle is already like pretty pushed in terms of, you know, his passive damage. So I don't know how much more we could even do to like make EKKO a better clearer without it feeling like just weird, you know? So yeah, basically I think EKKO could be in pro, but I don't know if we've made a better character if he is. Or we could just bring back Tank EKKO. Bruiser EKKO could come back. That could get him back in pro. But again, that's a whole nother you know? Swarm was dope. Will you bring back the OG game modes? My first time playing League was Doombots. So never say never. Like, the OG game modes can be brought back, but I want to like make something pretty clear. We can't just snap our fingers and bring back the OG modes. They do not exist anymore. Odyssey does not exist. Star Guardian does not exist. Doombots do not exist. And so it's not a matter of just re-enable it. It's a matter of rebuild it entirely. And that is the challenge. And you might be like, well, why would you get rid of them? And it's not that we got rid of them. It's not like we went in and we like, delete the files. It's that over time, things degrade, especially if they're attached to mainline League of Legends. So the way Doombots were made, the way Odyssey was made, is that it was made in the scripts of League of Legends characters. And, you know, over time, those characters get reworked and rescripted and updated and made more efficient and all these different things that over time, these modes decay. They need to be constantly upkept. And so I'm not saying we couldn't bring them back. I'm not saying they wouldn't be cool, but just letting you know that like bringing these old modes back is not a matter of snapping our fingers. It's a matter of recreating them and making sure they work again and making sure they're bug free. There's a lot that would go into that. So yeah, Doombots are cool. Yeah, Odyssey was cool. But just letting you know that like it would be a very real amount of work to bring back really any old game mode because of all the, you know, adjustments and bugs and QA work and design work that would need to go into it.